it's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to talk about Seafile. If you haven't heard of Seafile, or even if you have, you might be interested in this one because we're going to be talking about file syncing. Now, I've shown you Nextcloud in the past. In fact, I've shown it to you a couple of times, and Nextcloud's really great, but it's grown over the years, which is good. Sometimes that's a good thing for software, and it really provides you an alternative to like Google Drive or Microsoft Office, things like that, where you want a whole lot of functionality built into one application. It can be really great, but if you're looking for just the file syncing, something like Dropbox kind of originally started as, at least, where you have a good file syncing service that you can use, but you want it to be self-hosted and something that you have on your own property, on your own terms, then Seafile might be the one for you. And if you like it enough and you say, you know what, this is great, I'd like to use this at my company, I'd like to convince my company to use it, or maybe you're the IT admin and you want to switch them over to that, then Seafile also has paid options. This is, again, how they support the open source versions of their software. So please, whenever you start looking at these things, go check out their pricing, see what they have to offer, see what might be the benefit to you, to other people, to your company, to your business, things like that as well. And consider throwing a little bit of money their way, because that keeps the project going. And again, if you like it that much, it's worth it in the end, because it keeps the open source version going that you can use at home and have longevity with. So when we start talking about file syncing, we can just scroll down here a little bit. And right here, they show you what you're going to get. So you've got reliable file syncing. You've got a Drive client, which is always great. So if you've used Dropbox, if you use Google Drive, if you used any of those kind of things, you know that the Drive client gives you access to those cloud files basically, and it creates a virtual drive on your machine. So you've got built-in file encryption, high performance, knowledge management, which is great. And then it's also enterprise ready. So this is their claims. These are not mine. I'm just telling you what's on the page here. So your data is their first priority. And again, it's trusted by thousands. So here's some of the places that use it. I mean, there's some pretty big companies and some pretty massive companies. So that's pretty awesome. So Seafile is pretty great. Now, if you want to get to their pages where there's documentation, they have links up here at the top. We just jump here to the documentation page, and you can see here I just Googled Seafile with Docker, and it comes up as like the first hit. So deploy Seafile with Docker. Here you go. It's got a getting started page. It kind of tells you what's going on, and you need Docker Compose, and you need Docker and everything else installed. Okay, but as you go down, there's a Docker Compose.yaml file. This is just a super great, straightforward file. It's the one we're going to use, and then we'll modify it a little bit to fit our needs. And then they give you the commands that you need to run it if you're going to run it from the CLI. Now today, I think I'm going to do this from Portainer. I love the Portainer user interface. Again, another great open source project that is just amazing. So I think we'll spin this up in Portainer, and I'll kind of show you how that works and what we're going to do with that file. Once you click on that Docker Compose link right here, it just brings you over to this page here that has the Docker Compose kind of spelled out, and it's got a few pieces to it. So we'll kind of get this copied and pasted over, and then we'll get going with the installation here in just a minute. I want to say thank you to all of my patrons over at Patreon and my subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for all of your support. I love doing this channel. I love making this media and this content for you. I hope you enjoy it as well. I do post all of the videos now over at Patreon after one of my patrons made the suggestion, and I don't know why it didn't dawn on me before that. But if you're interested in seeing them through Patreon and getting a notification through Patreon instead of through YouTube, or hoping that YouTube's algorithms happens to show it to you, jump over and become a supporter on Patreon, patreon.com. I've got the links in the description and the show notes. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Alright, I've got Portainer open. I'm going to go in here to my local Portainer install. Now, I've got other ones that I'm using the Portainer agent to also access and control. But right here, we can see I've got 14 containers already running. We can click in and you can see what I've got going. But none of these are Seafile. I don't have it going yet. So we're just going to jump over here to the stacks page. So if you've never used Portainer before, what they use for Docker Compose is what they call a stack, because it's a lot of times a stack of software all together, which is exactly what Seafile is. So we're going to click on stacks here, and I'm going to click on add a new stack. I'm going to give this a simple name so I can find it. Now, it wants this to be all lowercase, so if you try to type something in and it won't let you click on the deploy button down here, check and make sure you don't have any uppercase letters or spaces, things like that. It just wants this to be a non-spaced lowercase word. So again, we're going to jump over here. We're going to just copy all of this text here. We're going to copy that. We're going to jump back over to Portainer. We're just going to paste that in. Pretty simple. Now we'll scroll this up a little bit so you can see everything. And I'm going to zoom this up on the screen a little bit so it's easier for you guys to read that might be on your phones. But it's going to use a version 2 Docker Compose file. The services are going to be the database first, which is great. MariaDB 10.5, awesome. And then it's going to be called Seafile-MySQL. That's going to be the container name. You got a couple of environment variables here that you might want to set. So MySQL log, the console is true. You can change that to false if you want to. But this one right here, this password, this is really important. So we want to make sure that we get this password set to something really strong. Now you don't need to know this password. You just need to copy it down into the next section here in the file. So we can make this a long, complex, strong password very easily by just typing in letters, numbers, and symbols, and capital letters, of course. And then just keep typing out everything you can, and just no spaces or anything like that. And once you've got a nice, really long password, just highlight that thing. And we're going to copy it, just like that. And we're going to move down. So right here, we want to set up a volume. Now, what I like to do is on the machine, I want to give it a place where I want to have everything done. Now, if you're doing this for file syncing, in this case, you might want a pretty large area, so you might have an external drive that you're actually setting up for this. But still, it's good to keep your Docker stuff organized. So even on that external drive, you'd probably want to do something to make it a little bit more organized. So what I like to do is I'm going to open up the terminal here. And I'm going to bring this up, and I'm just going to increase the font a little bit. And we're just going to SSH over to my system that we're looking at with Portainer. So I'm just going to do cd docker because I have a Docker folder already set up. If you don't have a Docker folder set up, you should set one up. And then you should create all of your folders for what you're going to run in Docker inside of that folder. Now, if you do this on an external drive, do the same thing. Create a folder called Docker, and then put everything that you're running out of Docker on that external drive inside of that Docker folder. It just keeps things organized and easy to find. And I have a video on Organization that I'll link as well in the description in the show notes so you can see that too. But right here, now we're just going to create a folder called Seafile. MK Seafile. There we go. And we can ls, and you'll see I've got Seafile sitting right there next to Uptime Kuma. So I'm just going to exit out of this real quick. And that's really all we had to do there. So now we're back over here. So I'm just going to make this that path. So I'm going to change /opt to /home Brian Seafile. Docker. So we've got /home /Brian /Docker /Seafile, and then this was already there. I'm just going to leave it because it'll be a nice way to kind of find the data in the database if I need to. It's going to depend on the network called Seafile-net. If you want to change this, you need to change it here and in every section, and then at the very bottom as well. I'd say leave it. You shouldn't have any problem with that file name. As we go down, we're going to see that we have a couple of things here. So the memcached area, I would just leave alone. I don't think we need to change anything there. But as we go down, we'll get to the Seafile section, so it tells you what it's going to use for the Seafile image. It's going to tell you the container name. Now this port, I already have port 80 in use because I use NGinX Proxy Manager, and you'll probably want to do this too if you want to be able to sync from outside of your home and you're running this in a home lab. You'll want to change this to a port that's not in use on the host, and you just change the left side of the colon here. So I'm going to make this 8290. That should be fine. And then the 443 is commented out. I'm just going to leave it commented out because I'm not going to use Seafile for my HTTPS. I'm going to use NGinX Proxy Manager for that part. Then we've got /opt, Seafile data. Again, I don't want that to be the folder. I want it to be home, Brian, Docker, Seafile. So just double check that you make yours correct. Yours won't be Brian, of course. It'll be whatever your username is. But make sure you're putting this inside of that Docker folder you created. As we go down, the DB host is going to be DB, and right here, DB dev, we need to copy that password from up here. So we just need to copy this thing right here. Oh, make sure there's no spaces. There we go. We're going to copy that password. Right click, copy, and then we're going to go back down here, and we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to paste it so it's the same. We want to make sure that those two passwords match. Right here for time zone, we want to change this as well. Now this is going to be for me, America /Chicago. And then you have an option here to set your admin email and your admin password. Now I'm going to tell you what I figured out and what I did. So first you have Let's Encrypt stuff down here as well, and a host name information. So I'm just going to comment out these lines. I'm not going to delete them, but I'm going to comment them out because I don't want it to use those whenever it builds this. And I'll tell you why. The first time I did it, I set up my admin email and my admin password here in the Docker Compose file. And I ran it and everything came up and I was able to log in like I expected. But then I went and tried to change my password through the user interface and it said that it saved. So I logged out, and when I tried to log back in, I couldn't. It didn't take my new password. I tried it multiple times to make sure I was typing it correctly and it wouldn't take it. But then I thought, oh wait, maybe because it's in this configuration file, it didn't get changed. So I went back and tried that password that was set originally, and it worked and it went in. So it to me appeared, at least, that setting that password here means that you can't change it to the user interface, and I don't like that. So what it's going to do, because we're marking these out, it's going to create this me@example.com, and then a secret is the password it's going to create for you. So whenever you do that, we'll log in using that, and then we'll create our user, make them an admin, and get rid of that other thing, and then we can do everything through the UI, and it's going to be great. So that's why I do that, just so you know. So those are marked out. Make sure you've got everything else set, and it should be fine. Everything should be good. Once you finish that, now, if you don't have Portainer, don't worry. What you want to do is just take this file that I've got, and you're going to put it into the terminal, okay? So we would go, and we'll go back to that SSH page here. So we're back on the server where we set up the Seafile folder inside of the Docker folder. So just move into the Seafile folder. And then right here, we're just going to create a file called docker-compose.yml. And then right here, you're just going to paste that same group of text. Make your changes inside of this file, and then you save it with Control-O, and then Enter to confirm, and then exit from Nano with Control-X. And the only difference is I'm going to click a button, and whenever you're not in there anymore, you would do docker compose up -d. And I'll have this again in the instructions in the show notes so you can do it through the terminal. I just wanted to use Portainer. It's a really great web interface. If you haven't installed it, go watch my video on installing Portainer, because it will just make your life so much better with Docker and management and everything like that. But this is how you would run it. You'd hit enter. It would go do the exact same thing that's going to happen when I do this in Portainer, and you'd be set. So if you feel like doing it that way, go for it. I'm going to go right here, and I'm just going to click on the deploy button. That's the only difference between what I did and what you're going to be doing through the CLI. All right, we got the little green checkbox. That's always a good sign, and it shows a C file right here that it's running and ready. So we're going to check out our containers page here. And right here we see Seafile. So I'm going to click on the logs. And the first thing you'll want to do is kind of check the logs, and you'll see that it says it's successfully created it, but you need to give it a little bit of time. And you'll see that it kind of jumps down and eventually says done. So it says that it's ready. So now it should be ready on that port that we set it for. So if we go back to containers here, we go out here to the right, we'll see this port. I'm going to click on it. And then here we are. Now remember, we did not set our admin username or password, so it's using the default. So I'm going to do me@example.com, and you can see where I've done this before through this browser. And I'm going to do ASECRET, a secret, and I'm just going to say login. Now, if everything worked well, we should be logged in. There we go. We get the little pop-up, welcome to Seafile, and you can kind of read about what it is and what it does. Now, you can close this guy out. So you can see very quickly that it looks very much like what I remember Dropbox looking like 6, 7, 8 years ago even. It's a very clean interface. It's very simple. It's got your folders or your libraries listed here, and then you can set up multiple libraries, and then you can sync certain libraries with certain clients, which is kind of cool. So if I have my iMac that I only want to sync certain folders with, and this machine that I want to sync certain different folders with, I can do that. They don't all just sync up together, which is pretty great. Now, when we start talking about syncing, I want to make sure that I'm very clear with you guys. Syncing is not the same as a backup. Never ever make that mistake. A backup says, I backed up this file, and it went to my backup location, my backup folder, my backup server, my backup drive, whatever it is. Later, I deleted the file off of my main machine, but I still have it in the backup location. If I need to go get it, I should be able to go get it because it's backed up somewhere. Syncing says, I saved a file and it got synced up to my server. It got synced to my other machines that are sharing those libraries. And later I went and I deleted that file from my main machine. But when it syncs, the main machine says, hey, I deleted this, and the server says, oh, okay, let me delete that, and all of the other clients say, oh, yeah, let me delete that. So you don't have that file anymore because it's synchronized. That's what syncing is. It synchronizes your data. So it is not a backup plan. It's not a backup strategy. You need to run something else as a backup strategy. This is file syncing. This says I made a change, and when I go to my other machine and sit down, I should be able to bring up that file and continue working on it with those changes in place. This is a syncing service, so just understand that. So I'm going to go over here, and you'll see I don't have an avatar set yet, so if you want one, you can set it, but you get some admin options here. So I'm going to make the interface just a little bit bigger, because I know some of you guys watch this on your phone. So again, I'll click, and you see you've got settings. Now these are personal settings. So kind of your profile, you can change this, of course. Now I wouldn't change this one. I'll show you what I want to do, but I just wanted to show you what the settings look like. So change your password, language settings, things like that. Again, I don't think change password is going to work for this user because it's, well, it may, but in the other file, if you undo that and you use it to set your admin password, the update password didn't seem to work for me. So I'll show you what I did. So we logged in as this user, and it's an admin user. We're going to go into system admin here, and you'll see there's a lot of things. There's information about the system. There's devices, which we haven't set up any devices yet, so they're not anything there. Again, there's settings that are more generalized system settings, and we'll go through these here in just a minute. But we've got libraries, so you can see the different libraries that are here. You can see system libraries, and then you can see any libraries that have been trashed. And then users. So you've got groups, and you can set up groups of users, but we've got users as well. So the first thing I want to do is set up a new admin user. So I'm going to say add user. I'm going to set this up with my email, my name, and the password that I want to use. And then I'm going to say submit. So now you see I've got a new user here, which is what we want. And then we're going to jump over to this admin tab right here. And you'll see there's only one listed. That's just the me@example.com. So I want to add an admin. I'm going to drop this down, and it's not showing me yet because it's still doing some things in the background of the database. So we just need to give it a minute. It takes maybe a couple of minutes. Now that I see my email, I might be able to actually add it. Let's see. So if you look right here, there's my email. If I go back to admin, I can do add admin again. And if I start typing, oh yeah, there I am. So you may have to start typing. There's Brian. So I'm going to say save. And now I'm an admin of the system, which is great. And I can go and actually delete this user. So I can go back here and I can say me, I want to get rid of. I want to say delete that user and confirm. So now I could go log out. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to say log in again. But this time I'm going to use my information I just set up. So I'm going to use this different one. And I'm going to log in. Now it's going to tell me to change that password. That's fine. Now trust me, you want to use a different password here. I tried to trick it and use the same password in all three blanks, and it didn't fall for it. It just made me come back to the screen. But once you've done this, I'm going to say, all right, log in again. So we do this one more time. And now we're logged in, and we are a full admin on the system, and we can update and change our password when we need to or want to, because now we have that capability. This is the reason that I did it the way I did inside of that compose file. I'll leave it up to you if you want to use the compose file for your admin credentials or not, but this is why I did it this way. Now that we've gotten through that, let's go back to some of those system admin settings. So here in the general settings, if you're going to use a URL, which I want to, you'll want to set what that URL is, just because this is something that it may be expecting as far as the way the service runs. So you'll want to set that here. Same way for file server root. You'll want to set wherever that's going to be. And then site title. So again, you can kind of set this to be whatever you want. It could be private C file. It could be my private files, my box, whatever. Again, site name, you can change this to whatever you want, and you can even put your own logo, so you can kind of white label this system, which is pretty awesome. You can set up your own fave icon, login background image. Again, same thing, you can set up whatever you want. And they tell you right here what the sizes should be in order to make this kind of look nice. Enable branding CSS, so you can use custom CSS as well. And then you have users, so allow new registrations, yes or no. Do I want to let other people register, or do I just want to set them up? So since this would be for my family, I'm going to say no, I don't want to allow new registrations. So I'm going to leave that unchecked. But if you want to allow new registrations, then check that box. Activating after registration. So do you want to activate a user immediately after registration? And it says if unchecked, a user needs to be activated by an administrator or via activation email. So you have some options here for how you get people activated, send activation email. So again, these things don't apply to me because I'm not going to be allowing registrations. But if I set somebody up, I don't want them to have to enter an email either. So keep sign in. You can set this for more or less if you want to. Login attempt limit 5. So there's lots and lots of settings you should go through here. You've got group settings. You've got password settings. So force users to use strong passwords, password minimum length, password strength level. You can enable two-factor authentication, which I think you should do on pretty much anything you run, and I will on my production system. This is just testing for you guys for the video. But you can see library history, encrypted library password minimum. Again, just all kinds of great settings that you should really go through and take your time to read about and understand, and then set them according to your needs. So settings are really important in here. Don't forget to go set those up. As far as everything else, devices, you'll see devices listed once you get devices added. Libraries, you'll see those as you add more libraries. Users, like I said, you can add more users so that your whole family can have access to this, and it's kind of like a Dropbox or whatever you want to call it. And they each have their own place to sync their files, which is pretty awesome. Groups, if you need to set up groups for a business or for a work environment, you can do that as well. Notifications, you can set notifications. I haven't looked at this yet. We can kind of see. I don't really know what it's going to do. It doesn't look like it's going to do much, so I don't know if I want to do that one yet. I don't see any notification settings for like what kind of service it would use. Maybe just something inside of here. And then links if you want to do kind of updated links. A pretty nice system right out of the gate here. So I'm just going to click on Seafile to go back to the home page here. So here you can see shared things that are shared with you, shared with everybody, and then you can share with groups, and you can pick all groups, or if you have other groups, they'll be listed, and you can decide what you're going to share and with which group. You can have favorites, published libraries, your linked devices again, so this would be just for your user. And then share administration, so decide what you want to share and how you want to share it. So that's pretty nice, simple, short list of options that you have there. Nothing super hard to understand. I think it's pretty straightforward, but what we want to do now is set up a sync client. So again, out on the Seafile page, you can get to their sync clients by clicking on the download. I've already got it open over here. So for Windows, they do have a client for Windows. Just go download the client. For Mac, they have it as well. They have terminal clients if you want to use that for Linux, or they have a client for Linux that's more of a graphical client. Again, not hard to set up. They have the Drive client for Windows, for Mac, and for Linux and terminal. And they also have clients for Android and iOS. And then they have the server, which we're already running in Docker, so we don't really need to look at that. But look at this, they do have server for Raspberry Pi, so the Docker should work for Raspberry Pi as well. And then finally, they have the Professional Edition, which I did tell you earlier you can pay for and get a license for, but that helps keep the open source project going if you do that. So pretty great. I've got the client already installed, but if you go to do it, basically just follow these directions. So they give you the standard Debian Ubuntu directions to go get stuff. Now they only have up to Ubuntu 20.04, but I just used it with 21.04, and it installed fine without any issues, and it opened up no problem. So you may have some issues depending on what version you're on, but give it a shot. Kind of know which version. If you're using something like Zorin OS, make sure if you know if it's 18.04, 20.04, those kind of things. But look for those and make sure you're on a system that's going to work with that. They also have Fedora and CentOS options as well. So it's not just those, and they have Arch Linux if you're an Arch Linux user. If we go back, the Windows client, I think you just download basically. And then let's get the Drive client for Linux, because I haven't done that one yet. So the same thing, they want us to go get the key. In fact, it's easier just to click the little copy thing here. And I'm going to go down, I'm going to open up my terminal. I want this to be on my local machine. I'm going to make this a little bit larger for you guys. I'm going to paste in that command I just got. So it adds the key to the key ring. Again, I'm just going to use the Ubuntu 20.04 version, even though this is 21.04 that I'm actually working off of, because it's Pop! OS 21.04. I'm going to paste that in, but it adds the Ubuntu 20.04. I don't know why it gets that text. There we go. We've got our bash command. We're just going to run this. And then we're going to do sudo apt update. That should go out and pull down everything that we need. And then they've got the final command, which is, so we're going to run sudo apt-get install SeaDrive-GUI for the graphical user interface, and I'm just going to put -y so it'll do it without asking. And it should be there. So if I go open up Seafile, you'll see that I've got Seafile, which is the sync client, and then Seafile Drive. So I haven't set up either one of these yet, so I'm going to go ahead and set those up. Once you run the Seafile client, it's going to come up and ask you where do you want to put the folder that it's going to sync, which is basically going to be called Seafile. So in my case, home/Brian. Let's just choose and let's just create a new folder while we're at it. And I'll go ahead and call it Seafile. I think it's going to put another one called Seafile inside of it, but that's fine. We'll save that and we'll choose it. We're going to click on Next. Now you need to put in your server information, so we're going to do HTTP, and in this case it's on my local system. I don't plan to move this system around or have it off of my local network, so it's fine to use the local address. But if you want to use this off your local network, you need to set up a proxy, http://192.168.10.26, and that's on 82.90, I think. So you put in the address and the port. Now this is my production version that I'm going to sync up here, and then I'm going to put in my email address, my login email, and the password that I set for this version. Automatic login's fine on this machine, and then this is the name of my machine. You can change that if you want to identify the machine, but it's fine. I'm going to click on Login. And then when it comes up, you get this little screen here that kind of shows you, here's the library that you have. You can see recently uploaded information, you can see your libraries, and then if there's anything shared, you can see that as well. Up here, you've got a little tool to tell everything to sync once. And then you've got this little gears icon that'll bring up some settings. So you can turn these settings on or off, you can set some speed limits. You've got some advanced settings that you'll want to read about probably and figure out whether you should turn those on or off. Language settings as well, so English United States is already set for me, but if you need to change that, you can change it to whatever you want. And then network, if you have proxies or anything like that to set, you can do that as well. In my case, none is fine, so I'm just going to say it's good and cancel out of that. So a few settings there inside of the sync client. Now, I'm going to go into my folder here. So I'll bring this over and we'll go down to Seafile. So once I bring this over, we've got Seafile right here at the top. And when we click, we'll see that it did put another Seafile folder inside of it. So you may not need to create that first Seafile folder. So I'm going to go and I'm going to tell this thing to sync. I'm going to grab the documents folder here and drag it down onto the little user interface, and you see how it highlights right there. I'm going to let go. We get this little pop-up and it says /home/Brian Documents is going to create a new library called Documents, and I can choose to encrypt it and then put my passwords in that I want to encrypt it with or not. It's kind of up to you. I'm going to say OK. So it should start syncing in the background. And if we go here and we refresh, yeah, we can see that there's documents and it's starting to do its thing. So if I click in, so the syncing may take a minute. I don't know how long it actually takes. We'll have to give it just a minute to see what happens here. And it could depend on file size and things like that you have inside of those folders. So I don't know what all it's trying to sync. I don't remember what's in my documents folder, but we can see here, oh, there we go. Now it says it's got a check mark, so it says it's synced. So let's just refresh this view. I don't generally work out of the browser view, but there you go. We've got a few thumbnails and things like that that I've made over time. So all my documents are now synced up to my server. So this is my server, and then back here is the client that I actually just synced that folder with. So now if I go in and make changes inside of that Docker folder, I should see those update and change and get synced. And of course the idea is that it gets synced to my server, but I would also want to have this on another client somewhere. So if we're outside of our network, we want to have this set up and be able to access it from outside as well. So we can go to NGinX Proxy Manager in this case. We're going to add a new proxy host, and I'm just going to call this sync.routemehome.org. I'm going to put in the address of my server. In this case, it's a remote server, so I can't just use the Docker address. And I'm just going to save that and make sure that I can route to it. It comes right up as soon as I click on the routing. That's great. So now I'm just going to edit it real quick. Jump over to the SSL tab. I'm going to say request a new certificate. I'm going to say force SSL, put in my email address, and accept the terms of service, and click save. We'll let Let's Encrypt do its thing here. And now I should have HTTPS access to this drive, and it does redirect you to HTTPS, and I should be able to log in. And there we go. I'm logged back in, and I'm logged in over an HTTPS protected network, which is great. So we've got that set up. Now I can set up another client on another machine outside of my network to do syncing to my drive and actually sync things back and forth. Finally, last but not least, remember we installed SeaDrive, so I wanted to kind of get you set up with that, and that's SEA drive, not like SeaDrive like on a Windows laptop, but it's the same setup form, so we're just going to go back through that same process. I'm going to do http://192.168.10.26, and mine is on 8290. I'm going to put in my user and my password. And this is, again, the same exact information. We're just going to put login. And it says it's getting everything set up. And now I can click on finish. And you'll see here that it opens up. And now I've got this mounted drive. So like I use pCloud Drive and for a lot of things, just the free account there, which is pretty great. I like what they do. It's a hosted thing. But Seafile Drive comes up the same exact way. And now I can access my documents. Now in this case I've duplicated my documents because they're on the same deal, but what I really should do is take these documents out of documents and just put them into the Seafile folder and have that synced up. But you get the idea of what I've got going now. I've got this really great way to have this drive that's set up, and I can access those things just like it's anything else on the system, just like it's any one of these external drives. So there's SeaDrive as well. So that's Seafile in a nutshell. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Get out there and give it a shot. If you're just looking for syncing and you're not looking for all of the other stuff that you get with something like Nextcloud these days, then Seafile might be the perfect solution for you. It might be the thing that you've been looking for, where you're just trying to sync up some documents, sync up some photos, sync up things from your family and share them out. Maybe something for a small business as well. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.